Broadcasting live from my pure hatred of Jawas. This is Pop Culture Reference, your one-stop reference for all things pop culture. I'm one of your hosts, Seamus Connolly.
And I'm Garrett Strother, and it is good to be back for our first show of 2022. We're almost a month in. I think we took a little longer hiatus for the holidays than we anticipated, just because COVID weirdness is still going on, and
Love it.
we're both very busy with our jobs and our families and everything else. But, frankly, there hasn't been that much to talk about.
Yeah, it's early January. All the exciting stuff happened around Christmas, and now we're gonna get lulled into an era of not super exciting stuff until probably closer to the summer. But, we still got plenty of Disney Plus stuff to talk about because they'll never let us not.
And, because of how kind of slow it's been, there have been delays and things like that we've said we're just pretty much not going to talk about anymore. Our only real news this week is there have been just a onslaught of celebrity deaths. Since the last time we recorded, Betty White, Bob Saget, Sidney Poitier, and Peter Bogdanovich have all passed away. Media, cultural icons, all in their own right. Betty White, obviously, just shy, tragically, of her 100th birthday. Yeah, just a really big lineup to lose all right in a row.
Yeah, Betty White has, she's been very healthy, and she was about to celebrate 100, of course, like a lot of people knew. But, Bob Saget, very much younger and very much more sudden, I think. I loved America's Funniest Home Videos growing up, of course. Absolute icon for that. And Full House, a very wholesome version of Bob Saget that I only knew for so long. I was very horrified when I finally learned, about his stand-up personality, but, very heartbreaking to see him go.
And I also know that we don't really talk about the show anymore because of how bad the ending is, but he is so much, I think, of what makes How I Met Your Mother so charming, too. He's the narrator of every episode.
That's right. I forgot that Ted Mosby grows up from an adult into Bob Saget at some point, and they never show it.
With that, there's that new How I Met Your Father, which I think is Meg Ryan, maybe?
And I heard it's so bad, but what did you expect?
Sidney Poitier, I think this one is one of the only deaths that could potentially overshadow Betty White, because, not only just an absolutely earth-shattering, groundbreakingly good actor, but a civil rights activist and somebody that broke a lot of color barriers in Hollywood. There was a really, really great Denzel interview that went viral around the time that Sidney Poitier died that I encourage people to go look up, where he's basically talking about how how it was really frustrating to him that he always got compared to Sidney Poitier, because it's not he's like, there's not only two black actors, and you should let every actor be their own person and not just put him in the box with Poitier because they're both African American, but also how simultaneously flattered he was to be compared to Poitier. Denzel is a great interview, and I think he has a lot of really interesting things to say about him, and he famously thanked him in his Oscar speech. Just worth looking up things that Denzel Washington has had to say, because I think that was that they're interesting cultural icons to juxtapose.
Yeah, that is really cool. I will definitely look up that interview.
And Bogdanovich too is a filmmaker that's extremely important to me. I think What's Up, Doc is a revelation. Last Picture Show is incredibly moving. Portrait of the American South in Decline. Paper Moon just rocks. He's just a good filmmaker. Also on How I Met Your Mother, I'm realizing, I don't know.
Really?
Playing himself. Great stint on The Sopranos, playing Tony Soprano's therapist's therapist.
That's pretty good. I'm looking at all of these movies now. I'm realizing I've never seen a single Peter Bogdanovich movie.
Oh, Seamus, that's crazy.
I know. I think I've just opened up a whole new vein of movies we need to watch together.
Absolutely. Yeah, you will be obsessed with What's Up, Doc. Austin Pendleton in that movie is one of the funniest supporting performances of all time, and he's going up against Madeline Kahn.
Oh, no kidding. All right, yeah, let's do it, man. You got a Blu-ray sitting around somewhere?
I don't think I do have any Bogdanoviches physically, but I remember a few years back there was back on Filmstruck, R.I.P.
Ooh, yeah.
They had a collection of like all of his films, and it was really fantastic. And I remember I'd seen a lot of them already, but just sitting at work, working an overnight desk shift, binging Bogdanovich.
Binging Bogdanovich sounds like a great podcast idea, where we just watch his entire filmography in one long stint.
That'd be great, especially considering that I think a lesser known aspect of Bogdanovich's life is that he was a great film historian. Like, he interviewed and made documentaries about crazy Hollywood legends. He was a great friend of Orson Welles. They had a very tumultuous relationship, and Bogdanovich spent a great many years towards the end of his life actually finishing Welles' last project that never got finished. That it's on Netflix right now. You could go watch it, and I stupidly haven't. It's called The Other Side of the Wind. Bogdanovich studied under Roger Corman, like got his start with Roger Corman. I think I've told you the story, Seamus, about Bogdanovich's first movie, Targets, was made when he was working for Roger Corman. Roger Corman had hired Boris Karloff to do this movie that had wrapped early because it was a Roger Corman movie, and he had Karloff under contract for 2 extra days, and he went to Bogdanovich. He said, you write a movie that you can use Boris Karloff for, and you only shoot with Karloff for 2 days, and I'll let you make it, and I'll let you direct it.
Oh, that is incredible.
And he made Targets, which is still to this day probably the best movie I've seen about mass shootings.
Oh, wow.
It was made in like the 60s.
Well, that is more prevalent than it probably has ever been today, so that would be a hell of a movie to check up on after all that time.
So yeah, Bogdanovich, a really great, prolific filmmaker, film historian. Portier, historic figure, a great artist and activist. Bob Saget, a funny stand-up comedian, gone before his time. And Betty White, exiting, as always, with some decent comic timing.
Truly, truly. They all leave great legacies behind.
But speaking of legacy, I wanted to say great legacies. Should we talk about the Book of Boba Fett, chapters 1 through 3?
I think we have a lot to talk about. Let's get into it.
For today's main segment, we're going to be talking about episodes 1 through 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. Normally, I think when we do these kind of TV shows, we just go into spoilers straight off the bat, but we've got enough to talk about, I think, probably tonally and conceptually, that we can do a little general thoughts first, Seamus.
Yeah, sure. General thoughts about the start of this. I am generally thinking that there is a lot of cool stuff they're doing, and a lot of interesting ways that they're taking this character that I might not have initially thought that they would. And I would like to see how they're gonna expand a little more. These first 3 episodes were a little slow, close together. I don't know what you want to call it.
You could say that nothing happens, Seamus. It's okay.
Nothing really happens, you know? It's they're making it very dramatic and seeming that a lot of things happen. And granted, there's a very big reliance on flashbacks right now to show the distance between the Sarlacc in episode 6 and what happens in The Mandalorian. And I have got to say, I'm definitely enjoying the flashbacks a lot more than I thought I would, but I think that's because I'm comparing it to what they're doing a lot in the present day of post-season 2 Mando, and how I want to see more actual cool stuff happen in present day, but they're really they're dragging it out. They're chopping up what I want to see a little bit and making it stretch, I feel like, for what this series is going to be. But what are you thinking after these first 3 episodes?
I'm kinda miserable, if I'm being honest. I just have no motivation to watch it. Like, it was such a chore to watch episode 3 to me. It's not that there aren't elements of it I like. I think Tamora Morrison is funny and doing a good job with the material he's been given. Ming-Na Wen is just criminally underutilized, has literally nothing to do. It's not that I am like a little fanboy who's upset about, oh, Boba Fett's supposed to be cool and kill people and whatever. Like, I don't I think it's great that we're giving Boba Fett more characterization. I just wish that any of it were more interesting. Because you can do slow burn political stuff in Star Wars that is interesting. I think about the Ryloth arc on season 1 of The Bad Batch. That is the most interesting politics I've ever seen in Star Wars, and it has none of the main characters in it really at all. And I'm like, where is that here? Because I think they're trying really hard to set up like all of these like almost noir-esque like power players in the seedy streets of Mos Espa, and I don't care even a little bit. I think that the flashback structure is really forced and weird. Because I'm starting to wonder, I know because of the way storytelling structure works that these two storylines will come together at some point, but as it stands right now, I agree with you that I'm way more invested in the flashback stuff, and even though there are some problems I have with it that we'll get into in spoilers, I don't care about Boba Fett, as you know. I've said that many times on this podcast. It's just not a character. I think the most interesting Boba Fett's ever been is his Clone Wars episodes, where he's like this young, hot-headed kid that is, trying to assume the mantle that his father left behind. I like that part of his character, which we're getting a little bit of, some of the flashbacks do allude to that, which I like. Not even the characters I'm excited to that I've seen pop up that we won't talk about have been enough to really engage me on this. And I'm sorry to say it, because there's been so much really good, nuanced adult storytelling going on in Star Wars lately, with both the High Republic and I think the Bad Batch, despite being a show that's more technically for kids, has a lot more going on. And I think all of the problems that I had with Robert Rodriguez's episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian have translated to this. And I love Robert Rodriguez as a filmmaker, but I just don't think that his idea of like what Star Wars is tonally meshes very well with what I enjoy about it as a property.
Or even specifically with the idea of Boba Fett as like the linchpin of everything. He's a very gritty and down in the dirt. There is a way that Robert Rodriguez does things that feels like we're not quite in the dirt where we should be. And maybe that's another piece of the puzzle where the writing of this character is kind of pivoting after what we've seen his character be reintroduced as in The Mandalorian. But I think that there is, like I said, plenty of time for them to bump it up a little bit. Get us somewhere towards the end of this series that will make us... Because this series is supposed to finally make people like you, who understand that Boba Fett was just like a cool toy to sell in 1983. They're trying to give the substance to that character that we've seen he can kind of have through the Clone Wars and the Mandalorian. But now that he's got the spotlight again, it's a little bit of a bungle, and I'm hoping that... Do we know? Is this a limited series or is this ongoing?
Very, very intentionally have not said.
Because to me, this feels like they're gonna go for the multiple seasons. I think that they're really going with the slow burn. But if they were close to halfway through this season already, they're going to be spinning their wheels by the time we get to the finale. I think they're going to be setting up a lot more about maybe other things outside of Mos Espa.
Yeah, I think if the intention was for this to be a limited series, things would be happening.
Exactly.
But, I mean, conceptually, just like broadly about this series, something I said when they announced it, or even when they reintroduced Boba Fett in Mandalorian Season 2, is for me, it all goes back to The Mandalorian always struck me as the Boba Fett show where we can actually just do what we want. Like, we have a bounty hunter who wears Mandalorian armor, who's cool and kind of silent and kind of tough, but we get to get into his psyche and open him up more and see what makes him tick. And we have an IG droid who's not that IG droid, but he's kind of similar. We got Trandoshans, but not those Trandoshans, because we have a bigger sandbox to play in. And it's obviously The Mandalorian works so well that they were like, no, but now we have to do it with the other thing. And that's so much less interesting to me fundamentally. I think I don't understand why the show exists, and nothing in these first 3 episodes has served to justify to me why this series exists.
Yeah, I think we're pretty on the same page here, and I'd love to get into some of the details that are making us think this way, because there are a lot of details that we need to touch on.
Okay, to wrap up non-spoiler thoughts, Seamus, who, if anyone, would you recommend this show to?
At first, in the first couple episodes, I was thinking maybe this is for some of the people who didn't necessarily get hooked on The Mandalorian, but they still have that twinge of original trilogy loyalty where they want to give it a shot for just the sake of Boba Fett. But even now, I'm thinking maybe I would like to see more before I would recommend it to any kind of, any level of Star Wars purist, because it's very new and it's kind of all over the place, and I think right now it's just for people who love The Mandalorian and need like a methadone fix of Mandalorian content before we get the real stuff again. So I guess it's for anybody who's just biding their time for The Mandalorian Season 3.
That's kind of where I'm at too, I think. I think it's like, this seems to just be a thing to give people the sweet content they're looking for, but it doesn't, as of yet to me, I don't think it's done anything where, like my friend Sean, he is a big Star Wars guy, but he doesn't watch the shows. He was kind of talking about it to me, the show, because, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And I just don't think this show hasn't yet to me shown me anything where I'm like, yeah, Sean, get in on Boba Fett, because I don't think it's frankly worth his time.
Like I said, I got my fingers crossed for the upcoming episodes. I don't even remember how long this first season is going to be, but I think it's like 8 or 9 episodes.
I don't know.
I
wish I did, Seamus.
It's long enough for them to throw some curveballs in here that would really, jolt a lot of energy into what like you were saying before. I'm not excited to watch this in the same way that I was excited weekly for The Mandalorian, because this is very different feeling, and maybe it'll fold back into what's coming up on The Mandalorian, or maybe it'll, Ahsoka or any infinite tie-ins that they could, juice into this Boba Fett corpse, but right now it's not doing it for me.
But yeah, let's talk spoilers, because I think actually some of our more positive things are going to come from spoilers.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they're like specific elements of the series I liked. So do you just want to mark spoilers for all 3 chapters and just talk about them as one piece?
Let's jump around. Let's really go all around to see what stands out.
Big up top, 2 characters I was very excited to see in this, because I am a dumb fanboy who likes to know what things are. Black Kursantan from the Dr. Aphra comics, the big Black Wookiee bounty hunter.
Kursantan?
Kursantan.
Because that's what they were calling him. They weren't calling him.
Or Kursan. She said, Fennec said like Kursantan or something, but I've just always,
Sure, yeah, you've read it.
You get it. That guy.
Yeah, he's cool. I like him. I don't know as much about him as you do, but I very much enjoyed those electro knuckles that he was just wailing on Boba Fett with.
Another thing where I wished, it seemed like he served any function at all. He just showed up. They beat him up for a little. It has the same problem that, every Disney Plus show has for me. Not just Star Wars, but, the Marvel shows have it too. The live-action ones. Where an episode spins its wheels until there's a fight scene at the end, and then the episode just ends. And I don't feel stakes, I don't feel consequences, I don't feel kineticism, I just feel like it's just the content machine delivering me my weekly episode.
And that, I don't know if we want to jump right ahead to this, but the 2.5 hour long speeder chase in episode 3,
where I went and filled my Brita in the middle of it, came back, and they were still chasing each other through the streets of Mos Espa.
They did the same thing 3 times in a row, where it's there's someone crossing the street, and then they turn in surprise, and then they almost get hit, and then they zoom right past them, and they do that 4. I don't remember how long the chase actually was, but it was too long. Far too long.
I liked the pit droid gag. That was the only one that got me, where it collapsed itself to get under the speeder. I liked that.
Shook his fist after them. Yeah, that I'll take. But just every time there's that many times, or just running into a fruit stand or a bunch of boxes. They just
or
keep
15
doing it.
fruit stands. It's like,
They filmed every cutaway in a chase scene, and then they just put them all in there instead of picking the best ones.
Honestly, I think if you went through the first 2 seasons of Star Wars Rebels and just cut every single speeder bike chase together, it would still probably be shorter than this exact one.
It's insane. And we might as well talk about it now. We have our augmented, like, millennial speeder moped gang, which they haven't done anything really yet, so there's room for them to shape up a little more, but it's Spy Kids to me, it really is just like, you work for me now, you delinquent kids who I'm gonna bring under my wing to, it's not like an army, it's not like they're that capable even. It takes 7 of them to take down the Wookiee guy.
I actually think that, well, first of all, I think the Wookiee guy
Black
is
Carousel.
This is gonna make me sound so stupid. I think they really nerfed him from the comics. Like, in the comics, he would have literally ripped them apart, all of them.
That's kind of what when you floated to me that this was a character that was pretty hardcore in the extended stuff, but that's kind of the vibe. When you were telling me about him, I was like, oh, this is like an actual threat to maybe some characters here, but no.
Not even a little bit. Didn't even rip the arms off a Gamorrean like I was hoping he would.
I was for sure that's where those Gamorreans, at least one of them. I mean, one of them got bit in the neck. I thought one of them was gonna seriously die.
But yeah, the speeder bike gang. I actually, first of all, a lot of people are upset about it because reasons. I don't know. I think it's fine. I think they're American Graffiti. They're George Lucas. They're like,
yeah, sure.
They work for me in that regard, and I actually like that it's showing. This is the best storytelling in the present day stuff in terms of it's showing a tangible way that Boba Fett is trying to clean up the streets, not by force or by violence, but by giving out jobs. He's trying to create like actual solutions to problems and not just perpetuate the ongoing system of corruption and abuse that has put Mos Espa in the situation it's in. So it's showing that he's making things better for these people, underprivileged people, and also the way that, like, Stephen Root's character, love to see him pop up, of course.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Is upset by that. Like, it's showing that shaking up the status quo is going to make you enemies in a way that's way more interesting to me than, like, the Hutts or the mayor or the mayor's aide who's the shrink from Groundhog Day. I don't care about any of that, but I think that there is actual human tension and conflict, not super compelling, mind you, in the way that the speeder bike gang kind of were ingratiated to Boba's circle. So, like, that worked for me more than most of the other stuff, frankly.
And a lot of what you're saying is more than likely how the idea of this big crime syndicate coming to move into Jabba's old territory is going to work out. It's going to kind of be that. Well, I mean, I, for one, think that he's, like, Jabba's palace is going to be done for by the end of the season. I think it's going to be.
That'd be cool. I like that.
He's going to try his best. He's going to fight his fight, and he's going to have to move on after the territory is claimed, or he's going to kind of like, from all the flashbacks with the Tusken Raiders, which we haven't even touched on yet, the way more respect that he has for, like, the natives of a place that they call their home, rising up with the people in the streets who are getting gouged on water prices and having decisions made for them by the, 4 warlords that control the territory or whatever. And that I wouldn't mind at all, for sure. I think that goes back with what you were saying of, like, he is a character who isn't necessarily trying to just hammer everything into where he wants it to be like he could. He's trying to, like, make that change, bringing that respect in after being saved from the Sarlacc and the Jawas that rob him at gunpoint. It's an interesting place that they could go with it, I think, but I don't know.
Well, you mentioned the flashback sequences, which I think, as previously mentioned, are much more compelling with the Tusken Raiders. Mm-hmm. My biggest problem with them is that I feel like his characterization is immediately like he was when he showed up on Boba Fett, or on Mandalorian.
I 100% agree with where you're going with this.
Like, if we're gonna do this flashback structure, make him an a-hole.
Yeah, make him the
don't
ruthless...
like. There's not another word. Like, I want him to be the bad guy that Boba Fett should be at the beginning. Like I have no problem with.
He needs to be the guy that needed to be warned that he should not be disintegrating people at one point. Like, no disintegration's Boba Fett, you a-hole.
Yeah, like Tusken Raiders. Like, I love them. Like him earning their respect, humanizing them, doing the whole Lawrence of Arabia thing with the train.
The train is awesome.
That's all great, and I feel like I would be so much more on board with the show if they had just done a little bit more work at the beginning to really show me that this guy's still a bastard and that he's learning to be better based on his experience with the Tuskens, because it's like he went into that Sarlacc and came out a completely different man.
And yeah, you're totally right, and it would make a lot more compelling storytelling sense to cut back to him as the daimyo trying to like be justice versus him like maybe still doing some bounty hunter stuff to get back on his feet, not immediately like indoctrinated and given a staff and a robe and taught how to dig for the water. And again, I liked it a lot. It is very Lawrence of Arabia, and I'm all about that kind of stuff. But you're not wrong that it should have been maybe a little more danger. I guess we still have more flashback stuff to go to get caught up. But right away, he's with the Tuskens pretty much, and he is a prisoner, and he has to kind of assimilate a little more. But maybe it's how they structured the flashback. But it really did not seem like he earned that much along the way.
I agree. Just like I've been enjoying the characterization of the Tuskens in Mando as like more human, I've really enjoyed the way they're characterized in this. There's a really fantastic Twitter thread that I read a couple weeks ago from at Darth Sienna on Twitter, where she, as an indigenous person, was talking about the Tuskens as an indigenous allegory, and how, I mean, in the original Star Wars trilogy, and frankly the prequels, they function in the way that Native Americans function in Western films from like the 30s through the 60s.
Yeah, like a mystic, dangerous force.
Yeah, in that by humanizing them and obviously being informed by Native American traditions in making their culture more complex, those are all like really positive steps that the Book of Boba Fett is taking, not to mention the fact that Tamira Morrison is an indigenous, not an indigenous American, but an indigenous person himself, so that there's a power in that, but that the thing that this person was afraid of that I had also given thought to and turned out to be true in episode 3 is that it feels like they were just humanizing those Tuskens to slaughter them to give Boba better motivation, and that is a little frustrating to me.
Yeah, for a while there I was really banking on like alright, he's gonna be the daimyo over here, and he's gonna invite like an integration of culture and a little more understanding between the settlers in Mos Espa and the Tuskens out in the Dune Sea, and how that could have more than easily been a very good integration of that newer perspective that he gained in these flashbacks. But like you said, they was just like, let's like give them some of the most interesting culture and history that we've ever seen Tusken Raiders have on screen, period. And then we'll make absolute sure that they are done for as soon as he leaves their side. As soon as he leaves that place, he comes back to smoldering ruins.
Yeah, I do like the trajectory that they're going with him in the flashbacks now, where it seems like he's gonna kind of fistful of dollars the Pike Syndicate.
Yeah, that is pretty tight. I like that.
But I'm just not... The stuff that I liked about the flashbacks, they've kind of stepped on, is basically what all of that is to say.
Which... again, as maybe one of the best parts of the entire show right now, it is not a good choice that is the direction they chose to go. And God help me, I'm still holding out hope. I'm hoping that, what was the syndicate that the twin Hutts said that were coming in to claim the territory?
That's also the Pikes. So this is where we're gonna see Boba's actions of the past probably catch up with him in the present, which is gonna be hopefully more compelling, but also you never know.
We'll see. I'm excited to see our Wookiee gentleman back at some point, because it's, the old Wookiee life debt. I don't know how much he follows that, but as far as I know, he's probably going to be back as a lieutenant guy.
But we have not talked about what is definitively the best part of this series, that being one Max Rebo.
I couldn't believe I'm almost surprised they didn't, like, give more time to Max Rebo. Like, he's there, and it's confirmed a la Lego Holiday Special that he is all good and that he too survived. Not even in the flashback. We don't see him, like, wiggling his blue legs in the sand or something. I don't know. But I'm very happy to see him back. For a second there, I thought you were going to say the best part of the show, Matt Berry as Droid 8D8.
That's also pretty good. The guy who was torturing Gonk droids back in Jabba's dungeon.
Is that the same guy?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Matt Berry's been here all along.
Yeah, I mean, like, the cameos in this are great. We already talked about Stephen Root, Matt Berry. Danny Trejo, he's the Rancor Keeper.
Oh, yeah.
I actually really liked that scene with the Rancor Keeper.
Where he's explaining, like, the imprinting and the...
Yeah, and, like, showing Boba being gentle to this creature.
Yeah, I like that, too. And how we're definitely going to get to see him ride that thing at the end of the season.
Like Omega.
Oh, do you think this is the Rancor from Bad Batch?
No, but Omega rides the Rancor at the end of that episode.
Why don't... I mean, I know it wasn't the that Rancor's going to show up somewhere. I guess it'll probably be in Bad Batch again, but...
I don't know. Whatever. I don't need everything to be everything.
I know, but, like, I don't know how many people just have Rancors lying around, you know? I thought it was kind of a rarity.
I don't know. I don't think it's out of the question for Omega to show up on this show, to be honest, but...
That would be totally kick-ass to be like, hey, you're, like, technically my dad brother, so we should hang out.
I mean, that doesn't seem to be the trajectory of the show, but the show doesn't seem to have much of a trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're biding their time for more important episode positions in the season to drop some bigger stuff. I think they were getting their footing with the first three, or trying to get their footing with the first three, and then they have a lot of stuff locked and loaded. I'm thinking, yeah, we're getting so much Jabba's palace imagery of, like, the little spider droid with the orange goop and the Gamorrean guards and the Rancor, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more. And, you know, Max Rebo, even, he does stuff there. We'll see more exciting cameos, maybe less Jabba specific, but
once again, just it comes back to me that all of this stuff ultimately feels like I feel like the Disney Plus shows have been, except for season 1 of The Mandalorian, which I was incredibly fond of, have turned into, it's just like post-credit scenes that are entire series. Like, it's just the setup, it's the mechanism to deliver the big twist, the big reveal, the big cameo.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I definitely, and I will also say, I think Mando season 2 does it very effectively with stuff like the Ahsoka stuff and all that.
Oh yeah, the Ahsoka episode's great. Like, it can be done well.
But this is the vibes I'm getting from these first 3 episodes tell me that there are going to be big implications for the future of present day stuff, and it might not be done the way that I would necessarily want it to be done. But like you were saying, I still have a lot of faith in Robert Rodriguez's whacked out mind that he could pull some very interesting stuff out and do it in a very well done way. But I would like fewer speeder chases and, you know, a little more substance to go on. Maybe another, because I know episode 2 was like pretty much a full flashback episode. I'm not even necessarily
and it was the best of the 3, so look at that.
Exactly. I'm saying, like, maybe we'll get one or two more of those of where, you know, you can bridge the gap for that and where he starts off with in Mando. But I don't know. I'm waiting for next Wednesday. I'm crossing my fingers that we get something good.
Me too. I mean, like, there are good things. I just don't care is really my vibe on this.
Yeah, and that is okay. As people who have dedicated a maybe unhealthy amount of their lives to Star Wars, this one piece of it not clicking entirely for us, I think, is okay. That it should happen sometimes.
I mean, I don't want to tease too early for next week, but I mean, the Star Wars content we have to talk about next week, I think you and I are going to be just, you know, fawning over for the entire episode.
Yeah, so. It is going to be kind of a big split, I think, but God help us, we'll get some crossover on Disney Plus at some point.
Boba Fett and Avar Kriss, the Force ghost of Avar Kriss.
Boba Fett's suddenly Force sensitive and a Jedi. Deal with it.
And he's the clone of Jango. Wasn't the cloner guy? Was he? They're all clones of a High Republic Mandalorian Jedi who also I lost it all.
This is all better than some of the stuff we've been seeing anyway. So who knows?
All right, should we reference it up though?
Let's do it. This week's pop culture reference is the expanded universe history of Boba Fett. The recent recontextualization of a post-Return of the Jedi Boba Fett was introduced to audiences in The Mandalorian Season 2, with the character's first chronological, canon, live-action appearance since 1983. While this was a major shock to many fans that believed that the Sarlacc pit on Tatooine was the final resting place for the Fett bloodline, those who had read the various expanded universe novels before Disney deemed them non-canon legends knew that there was always a possibility of his return.
Though these stories are open inspiration for the future of the character, and can already be seen subtly influencing the Book of Boba Fett series on Disney+, many differences in Fett's personal history have been changed to adapt to this new era of his character. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc, while still utilizing his Mandalorian armor and jetpack, did not lead him into the hands of Tusken Raiders as the Book of Boba Fett has shown, but instead, into the sandcrawler of some scavenging Jawas, and right back into the direct path of Han Solo and the Skywalker twins, and swiftly, then, back into the Sarlacc pit.
Then, after being rescued by fellow bounty hunter and headscarf fashion icon Dengar, Fett returned to a life of high-profile bounty hunting in the wake of the fall of the Galactic Empire. He would also work with and against other iconic bounty hunters such as Bossk, and utilize a plethora of new ships with this classic slave designation, all while most influential people in the galaxy believed him to be dead after his second descent into the Sarlacc. His stoic and respect-driven choices can be seen in both versions of Fett's character, and specifics like him being initially found by Jawas are still being worked in. But the EU is based in another lifetime of bounty hunting and personal vendettas to solve, rather than the Book of Boba Fett settling him back in Mos Espa to Jabba's palace as the new daimyo.
Seamus, where does Patton Oswalt's Episode 7 rant from Parks and Recreation fit into all the legends and canon nonsense?
I think, from the very brief mention of it in that, I think that is, like, actually what the books are about, right? That's real novels, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was never a big expanded universe guy, but it only makes sense to me that, like, people are mad that Star Wars has brought Boba Fett back, but it always made sense to me for that character to survive past the Sarlacc pit, because that's such an underwhelming way to dispose of a character that has been built up as, if not competent, at least menacing.
Yeah, totally agree. I never got too far. I don't think I've ever read an EU novel, but I would definitely love to. I've heard many of them are very well done, but it was always in the air around all of the other Star Wars stuff that I was obsessed with, that Boba Fett was out there somewhere doing stuff. And you know, what do you think in terms of, would you rather have seen him go back to more of a, I guess that's kind of what the Mandalorian series has turned more into, is the bounty hunting stuff, but now we have like Emperor King Boba Fett doing his thing in Mos Espa, and I'm wondering which one you would have rather maybe had.
I think conceptually, I'm more engaged in what they are choosing to do on Book of Boba Fett. I think I agree with you, Mandalorian's got that kind of bounty hunting thing down. If you're itching for that kind of bounty hunter Boba Fett, I highly recommend looking at some of the more recent comics that they've done, especially the big crossover comics event War of the Bounty Hunters, which he is essentially the lead character of. It's while he's transporting Han Solo to Jabba the Hutt, all the troubles and complications and other syndicates and other bounty hunters and things that he runs into along the way, which is cool, and I like it, but again, doesn't feel super consistent with the direction that they're moving with him in The Mandalorian. And I think that this idea of Boba Fett, his past catching up with him, trying to right some of his wrongs, spending more time in the political underbelly of Mos Espa, and thinking about the Hutts, that's all cool, and I like all that. It's just that I don't think it's being executed super well on screen right now.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying there. I think that I like the entire main segment. I was saying I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but they have the opportunity to really do that. But it makes me think about what we could have had with more of a, I don't know what to say, so like lawful evil style Boba, where he's a lot less merciful and a little more bloodthirsty, kind of like how we were told to think of him throughout the original trilogy, is basically like the most notorious masked bounty hunter out there. And I think that they could have sprinkled a little bit more of that in through his, I guess we still have flashbacks to go see if that stuck with him a little bit after the Tuskens, but I don't know. I think I would love to see Dengar again, I guess is what I'm really saying. I think I would love to see him show up on the Book of Boba Fett. I think if they didn't do Werner Herzog already in The Mandalorian, I would love to have seen him in
Oh,
a
that would
white
have been so
headscarf.
good.
Would that not have been like the perfect cast? I don't know. What could have been?
I mean, like John Malkovich, I guess.
Oh,
He
that
could
would be
okay.
kick-ass too.
I mean, not that Werner Herzog, I don't think had any patience for Star Wars, but John Malkovich especially, I can't imagine being like, I'm a what?
What? He's just like a guy. He's just a bounty hunter guy.
I'm not putting that thing on my head.
His beautiful high voice coming out of that head wrap.
I love John Malkovich.
Me too. I'd like to see most high-profile actors and filmmakers dabble in Star Wars at some point, Werner Herzog style. And just a quick other aside, Willem Dafoe as Bosk. Thank you. I rest my case.
He can do that kind of thing, can't
That's what
he?
I'm talking about. He got a little croaky, a little slithery with his voice. He could do it. It'd be a lot of makeup, but he could do it.
Yeah, because I'm sure Bosk isn't going to be full CG when he shows up at the end of the season.
They had Tredoshans in like the first episode of Boba, and they looked like really good. I think they didn't look super CG to me.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. With their weird blinking.
Yeah.
You see Tredoshans blink.
Yeah, right? And you know Willem would be like, no, put me in the makeup. I want to be in the makeup. He's always talking like Green Goblin.
Even though he didn't wear the mask, he wouldn't wear the mask in Spider-Man. He's gonna sit and get Bosk makeup done.
I thought his whole thing was like, I want to do all my own. Oh, because he wanted to smash the mask at the beginning. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what. I don't know.
I know he was like, I'll only be in the new Spider-Man if I could be on like the stunt team and like do more of my own stuff. Which Bosk is gonna show up. Dengar's gonna be there. I don't know what happened to IG-88, but I bet they could get Taika Waititi back to do something. I don't know why they would all sound the
you just
same,
get another New Zealander to do it. You get like you get one of the other Flight of the Conchords guys.
Is it Tamir Morrison, New Zealand? Isn't that where he's?
I think so. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I doesn't really. Let's not get him to do it. But I'm saying he's got to know some people.
Reese Darby. You get Reese Darby.
Who's Reese Darby again?
He's the manager on Flight of the Conchords. He's also in.
Yes.
The guy
great.
who welcomes everybody to Jumanji in the new Jumanjis.
Oh, I didn't know he was in that movie. Actually, I still haven't seen the new Jumanjis.
Oh, right, because you're a fool.
I'll agree at this point that I should have already probably seen one, if not both, of the newer Jumanjis.
I mean, the second one's like, but it's fine. It's fine.
I would watch the original and the first remake one.
I'm kind of scared to revisit the original, to be honest.
Why?
I feel like it's not as good as I remember it being.
Dude, you know me. I had a mini portable DVD player for road trips, just like any other white kid from Chicago, okay? Mm-hmm. And I watched Jumanji so many times, Garrett. I watched it so many times.
I feel like I probably haven't seen Jumanji since it came out of a white clamshell, so...
Whoa, alright, we need to revisit it maybe, because it's great. Granted, there are insane magic implications about time travel and alternate dimensions, and, Robin Williams goes to the Oompa Loompa land that Johnny Depp does in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, apparently.
What?
Do you remember that flashback sequence in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
I know that, and I know that obviously he goes to the jungle.
That place in Willy Wonka is exactly what I imagine when he describes that place that he goes to in the jungle, where there's like beasts and like giant bugs and stuff.
Yeah, I will say, actually, some of the lore is addressed in the new Jumanji.
Oh, is it?
And one of the only things I don't like about the new Jumanji is that it does not seem as horrifying as Alan
hell no.
describes it.
That as a kid, that description freaked me out, man. Like, especially because the giant mosquitoes come through later and the...
Yeah, like he's stuck on Skull Island, basically.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
But shall we move on to our rec center this week?
Let's do it.
Now it's time to Save the Rec Center, where we bring you our weekly recommendations. Seamus, you were already kind of teasing me a little bit about your rec center at the top of the show, but let's hear it now in its full glory.
Well, I didn't want to put it up top because this man is an actual horrible bastard man, but Robert Durst also died in the span of time that it took for us to come back on the show. Those of you who don't know, famous crazy person and Manhattan real estate heir, Robert Durst, was in jail awaiting more sentencing or more trial for various terrible things that he did throughout his life. But I know him very well through the HBO miniseries The Jinx, which I believe came out in like 2015 or 2016. So it's a little older, but it is on HBO Max, and it is a true crime documentary about this man and all of the incredibly mysterious deaths that surround his entire life, pretty much. It's disturbing and very morbidly interesting because it's a lot of murder stuff. If you like true crime, it's right here for you, and it's like inexplicably very funny because Robert Durst was just like, he's just the craziest man you will ever see on camera. And it's a very interesting documentary series because it is some of the most first-hand interview footage and audio that I've seen in a true crime project about the person speaking. So if you haven't yet given it a chance, go for it. There's a lot of great twists and turns. It's only 6 episodes and it's fantastic.
I remember that being one of the things that really kicked off the like true crime fad that we're still kind of riding the wave of.
Yeah, and definitely that true crime vibe of like, oh, maybe this entertainment project about this case might help solve a case that has been cold for so long. And, I'm not going to spoil too much about the Jinx itself, but there is definitely a lot in that documentary that I think helped get a little justice for a lot of the victims of these cases. So,
well, I've never watched it, but I've always heard that it has one of the most satisfying docuseries endings ever. So,
my God, it is truly it's like at the very last moment too. It's like you think it's one way, and then boom, they hit you with the highly recommended, Garrett. I just finished binge watching it again in dishonor of the death of Bob Durst, but I would watch it again with you today if you wanted to. It's something crazy.
Well, I'll be sure to check it out soon, and hopefully maybe have you on over, and we can we can take a look.
But what do you got this week for the Rec Center?
Well, I've been teasing you, intentionally not telling you, Shane. For a couple weeks now, almost, I think. Maybe about just a week, whatever.
Long enough that I'm still thinking about it.
Well, today's pop culture reference is Eating Crow, because Steven Spielberg's West Side Story is one of the best movies from 2021.
What? My God.
You and I were incredibly verbal about our skepticism following, like, one, the idea of remaking West Side Story, 2, how not good the trailers looked, 3, the fact that problematic King Ansel Elgort was the lead, and while he is certainly the weakest performance in the entire piece, it's not the production's fault that all kinds of incriminating stuff came out about him after they had wrapped shooting, but it is explosive, vibrant, dynamic, soaring, musical goodness. It has completely eclipsed In the Heights for me as the movie musical messiah. It's the best movie Spielberg has made in 20 years.
Oh my God. This is a lot to take in, Garrett. I'm going to be honest. This is not what I was expecting.
Seamus, I know. I am in shock. But I kind of can't stop thinking about it. And this is the part that's really going to get me, my dad's going to probably yell at me. I think it might be better than the original. A movie that I think is incredible.
Yeah, that's a big words, fella. You better watch it.
Like, you know how you and I so often talk about how Spielberg seems to have forgotten everything he's ever... Like, he used to be so innovative, and his blocking and his kineticism of his sequences used to be, like, so tight, and we were like, man, where did that Spielberg go? No, he's been hiding away somewhere.
He's been hiding in Manhattan.
It's back.
That's wild, dude.
It's crazy. Man, it really, really is.
I was going to see it over the winter break with my family, and then it was just kind of like, okay, maybe. And then we never ended up doing it, and I'm shocked, truly. I hadn't heard too much. I heard it was good. I heard it was well done. I haven't heard too much on either extreme end, but like I'm so happy to hear that. I remember like months and months ago, vividly I remember us going like, what if this movie is incredible? Marvel. And we were like, no, get out of here. There's no way. But we were like, what if? And now here we are.
Like, I feel like 2021 was the year of directors like coming back and just being like, you know what? The best thing I've done in like a decade, or in some cases, like the only thing I've done. Spielberg is back with this. Joel Coen's back with Tragedy Macbeth. Jane Campion's back with Power of the Dog. Like, it's just the all-time masters are here, and they are really bringing it. And
there was some COVID reflection time for everybody, and then they came back out swinging.
Yeah, I'm not going to the theater right now. Again, I'm back to, like, I don't think it's safe right now with all of the surges and Omicron and everything else. That shows no sign of slowing. But my buddy Alex, he works at a movie theater, and he was like, after closing one night, we went in and watched just the two of us.
Nice.
It was really fantastic. So yeah, a movie I wouldn't have seen were it not for that opportunity I got, and I'm really also glad I saw it on the big screen.
I'm gonna ask.
I'm not at all going to encourage a single person to go out to a theater right now because it is so scary. But yeah, it is so, like, it's so visually exciting. It's so loud. The music has so much energy to it. I think that's the thing that really, I think, gives it maybe a little bit. First of all, Spielberg wasn't afraid to change things for his adaptation, which I liked. Move the order of things around, have entirely new or different things happen from the story that you're used to, but also that I feel like the staging and blocking of the musical numbers is so much more intricate and big and alive than it is in the old film, which is saying something because, I mean, that is some of the most iconic musical numbers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm pretty confident when I can say that the staging of America in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story is better than the staging in the 1961 version. When did that movie come out?
That sounds around the right time. I that is one of my absolute favorite songs and sequences in the original, so I'm so intrigued, Garrett. Did they do Officer Krupke? Did they do that justice? That's also one of my favorite.
That is a great one. Also, I think the staging is more dynamic. I mean, it helps that they probably have what is a bigger budget. They have modern technology. They have, it's not apples to apples. I still think the original West Side Story is one of the great movie musicals. It's so influential. But another thing I really appreciated about Spielberg's West Side Story, which I just kind of alluded to, is the fact that he is not just doing the old one, which is, I think, what you and I both assumed this was going to be, and why we were so dismissive of it outright.
I mean, that's exactly what I was expecting, and to know that it is, whenever there's like a remake of something, I always turn it into like a defensive view of like it's an attempt at a replacement. But if it is squarely its own version of a story that was already based on a Shakespeare play from hundreds of years ago, and it can stand on its own 2 feet as what it is in apparently an absolute shining glory, then I am very excited, a lot more excited than I've ever been, frankly, knowing about this movie, to go see it now that you've given it that endorsement.
I'm guessing it won't be playing for much longer regardless because it is making absolutely no money.
And when I say go see, I definitely mean wait for HBO. Who gets that? Who?
Well, it's a Disney, right?
Oh.
So it's a Fox. It's a Fox.
So
Hulu or Disney Plus, one of the two.
I've got them both.
I'll probably be buying it if I'm being honest. Like, I really was taken with it. And Seamus, I would absolutely love to watch it with you when it comes out.
Yes, please, yes.
I'm itching to see it again. If it were normal times, I would have already gone to see it again at least once.
Well, I definitely want to get a rewatch of the original under my belt before, because it's been a good while, but I'm very excited, man. Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Also, maybe we should do that together too, because
double feature, do like a 6-hour double feature.
I think like letting them breathe from each other. Maybe like you and I prioritize watching the new one or the old one first, like now-ish, and then wait till like March or whenever the Blu-ray comes out.
That's actually a really good idea. Let's do that. So
yeah, both great films. I'm not trying to knock obviously the original at all. it's still a stone cold classic and deserving of all the praise it gets. But Steven Spielberg's West Side Story is definitively his own, and I am so shocked and delighted that I am completely taken with it.
Dude, me too. I'm glad we're making these plans. I'm very excited to see it and see it with you, and probably see it on Blu-ray from your collection at some point.
Fantastic. I cannot wait.
But I think that wraps up our show for today. If you want to reach us on social media, that's at PCR_podcast on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok. And if you want to email the show, you can email us at popculturereferencepod@gmail.com with any questions or comments about what you hear.
Next week, we're going to be talking about the first 2 adult novels in the Star Wars The High Republic series. That would be Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm. We will probably be talking about some of the other satellite material that either of us have consumed from that era, but mostly we're going to be talking about those novels, which I'm really excited to discuss with you, Seamus.
Yeah, this is going to be a whole different breed of Star Wars than we got today, and I'm very excited to kind of see the breadth of this new era, even with the stuff we're getting now on TV and these incredible books.
But yeah, we gotta get off the show so you can go finish Rising Storm.
Yes.
And I'm so excited. See you next week.
And for the first time in 2022, adios, amigos.